you've got to be a sponge. You've got to learn as much as you can, and being around some of those experienced guys, that's all you want to do is learn and sort of see how they got to where they are.
Welcome to the Sporting Mindset Show. Our chat today is with rugby player Doug Phillipson. We discuss being a sponge and learning as much as possible, the people who have had a positive influence on him and his values, overcoming injury, and the lessons rehab provides. Please enjoy. Doug Phillipson, welcome. Nicknames, have you got any, and have they had an impact on the development of your personality?
G'day, mate. Thank you very much for having me. Nicknames. I probably haven't had any too outrageous ones over the years, but Doug, Dougie, anything like that's probably been as far as it goes. So.
And being Australian, it's either Duggo or Dougie, and usually Dougie sounds a bit better than Duggo, doesn't it?
100%. I've had both, and depending on the day and how much trouble I'm in, it probably varies, but yeah, for sure.
And so in terms of your career, and we'll discuss little things that have happened, especially like last 12 months, especially with injury and the mental side of things like that. As a kid, were you ever aspirational about being a professional sportsman?
Yeah, for sure. I think it'd be crazy if I said I wasn't. I grew up on a small farm in sort of country New South Wales, and my old man played rugby. My mum's a Kiwi, so live and breathe sort of rugby on both sides. And I guess it was sort of started playing early on, and it was always a dream. So
rugby's always been your sport?
Yeah, for sure. Played a little bit of soccer growing up and a bit of athletics and stuff, but definitely rugby was always the one I sort of fell in love with early on, and haven't looked back since.
And in terms of playing a contact sport, you play 9. Mate, you're a pretty physical guy. You obviously keep yourself looking good and strong. Injuries apart from that. The contact side of the things, did it ever have an impact on you, how you played?
Oh, not necessarily. I guess I always probably enjoyed that side of things. Whether or not my body has kept up with it or enjoys it as much is probably another thing. But it's good. Yeah, it's something I've enjoyed, and
That physical preparation, is that an enjoyment for you, or do you find that it's tough work and you got to get your head around going to the gym to get that extra bulk on, or has it come easily for you?
Oh, I guess probably as a little fella in the group, it's something that's a bit of a non-negotiable, I guess, from the gym work, the preparation on field and stuff like that. And when you are probably the smaller sort of couple of players in the squad and across teams, you've got to put that little bit extra in just to keep up and compete.
And so I'm sort of going down the lines of dealing with some of these massive units. How do you feel? Like, you made your debut, Super Rugby debut last year against the Chiefs. How did you feel in the change room before you going out there to then go on the field?
Yeah, it was, I guess it was a bit of a whirlwind sort of week or two, I guess, leading into it. Nick White sort of got himself knocked out the week before and finds he was having a baby, his first child. So I was sort of very lucky and got my opportunity. It was something I dreamt of since I was a kid and had spent a couple of years preparing, I guess, in this environment alongside those guys. So within reason, I was probably more excited than anything and just couldn't wait to get out there.
So was excitement over fear?
Yeah, for sure. I think so, yeah.
And so in terms of your mindset and how you think about it, do you see nerves as a form of excitement, or is it a trigger for performance?
Nerves, look, I think they're pretty natural. I think it's something that everyone has to deal with in all walks of life, and regardless of what you're doing, whether it's work or sport, or if we're lucky enough to be in a high performance environment. Again, something I've probably learned and taken a few notes from a few guys and a few different coaches is nerves is something, it's natural, but again, if you feel like you've done enough work and preparation leading up to it, then the rest will take care of itself, kind of thing.
And so you just mentioned other players and coaches who have had an influence on you. Who would be the biggest influence that you've had on your career?
Oh, probably the last couple of years. I've been lucky enough to work with some pretty good nines over here at the Force. Early days with Isaac Fines-Laliawassa and Henry Robinson, Ian Pryor. He's a Perth legend and played a lot of games for the Force. And then a little bit more recently, Nick White come across and added a world of experience on and off the field, and it's something I tried to be a bit of a sponge around and learn as much as I could.
Is curiosity something that comes naturally to you?
Oh, I guess so. I think so. I think it's something that I've probably has been drilled into me early on, especially coming across as, I guess, one of the young kids or younger guys coming across. It's, you've got to be a sponge. You've got to learn as much as you can. And being around some of those experienced guys, that's all you want to do is learn and sort of see how they got to where they are.
As a young kid, did you ask a lot of questions? Did you want to know a lot of stuff? Or is that understanding that you've got to ask a lot of questions, has that come later on in life?
Oh, it was probably a little bit natural. I think my old man would be the first one to pull his hand up and say I'll probably talk too much or ask too many questions growing up. So used to give me a bit of a hard time. But again, I'm intrigued and things that I do find interesting, I just want to learn about.
And your dad, what type of influence did he have on you?
Yeah, he's massive. He sort of brought us up on like I mentioned earlier, on a farm, sort of 4.5 hours northwest of Sydney, and I guess instilled a lot of sort of that country sort of farming lifestyle and values growing up. Hard work being one of them. And then again, he was a massive rugby union lover and played as much as he possibly could and as much as his body had led him. And I think he enjoys, and it's pretty exciting for me to be able to continue that and have him sort of support me and enjoy everything as well.
And you talked about work ethic being one of the values. What couple of other values that your family have instilled in you that have played a part in you becoming professional?
Yeah, I'm not too sure if they've, how much of an important part they've played, but I'm sure they have. Obviously, work ethic was one, coming from a country sort of farming background, and then they're just not forgetting where you come from. We grew up in a pretty small town and didn't have too many kids in our class, but just remembering where you come from. I guess having a bit of perspective in life's always good too.
And then you're 22. Do you reflect on the perspective that you have, and do you sort of think, I've got so much more to learn? Or do you look back at the experiences you've had and almost try and suck as much out of those experiences to create better perspective?
Yeah, I've probably been pretty fortunate from the perspective side of things. I feel like I can sit back a little bit and, it allows me to sort of, I guess, when the things I feel like are maybe going a little bit worse to wear, things are going amazing and I feel like I'm on top of the world, then perspective sort of something that brings me back to earth and grounds me pretty quickly.
We'll get to the injury side of things, our ACL. How was your mindset or your mental state, when that occurred, going through the rehab? Because anyone who's been through an ACL or a shoulder recon or something like that knows what it's like being in the rehab group. How was your mindset when you went through those processes?
Yeah, I guess when I first left school and I moved over here, I had my two shoulders reconstructed, which was good, and I was very fortunate to work with a good crew here in the rehab department. Got them, as good as I could get, and haven't had any issues since. And then I sort of picked up a broken jaw 2 years ago, leading up to the 20s World Cup. So again, it was a bit of a kick in the guts. And then, I was fortunate enough to make my debut last year. Got through an awesome season and was looking forward to playing some club rugby, and then did my knees. So, initially it's a big sort of, I guess, sigh, and you feel a bit beaten down, but the quicker I could sort of go, right, what's next? That was in regards to getting ready for surgery, and then the surgery's done. When can I start passing, seated? When can I start getting a little bit stronger? When can I watch a bit more footage and work with guys and coaches outside of that and keep trying to, I guess, getting better and keep trying to work away from the field.
So in terms of that rehab and going through that process of how can you get better with different ways of training, was it hard for you to motivate yourself to go chasing that, or were people prompting you? Did you have someone that you could talk to who would help you get through that, or did you internalize some of those feelings and those motivations?
Yeah, I guess a strong sort of network is vital, and I guess anyone will tell you that, whether it's family and friends or coaches and other players. So
yeah, who have you lent on over here in Perth? Because obviously your mum and dad are back in Orange or outside Orange. Who have you lent on here in Perth?
Yeah, I was pretty lucky. Probably lent on the boys a little bit more than anyone else. I got a few close friends. Ronan Lay, Mitch Watts was here, and Georgie Pullman and stuff. Bertie Alcock, all my close friends and housemates that I've lived with. Those guys have been my big rocks throughout this, and have always sort of pushed me along when I needed it, and picked me up when I needed it too. So
now you talk about housemates. So what's the home environment like in terms of being professional and making sure you're doing the right things when Chrono's not looking?
Yeah. No, I've been pretty fortunate. We lived in a house down in Scarborough for a couple of years, alongside guys like George Pullman, Mitch Watts, Sam Spink. He was an English fella that come across for a couple of years. Bertie Alcock, Ronan Lay, number of guys, and probably younger guys. We're all in similar boats, moving over from the East Coast. We're overseas, and you get quite fortunate. You don't necessarily have family and friends outside of the rugby environment, so you tend to get pretty close, and everyone looks after each other. It's good.
And how would you do that in the house? Like, what would be
Yeah.
the things that you guys would do? Because obviously when you go to Force HQ, you know what's expected there. But I talk to a lot of players about what do you do when the lights aren't on? You know, in the darkness of where the coaches can't see. What are you doing to be as professional as possible?
Yeah, for sure. Obviously, nutrition's a big one. We're pretty fortunate with some of our nutritional support and staff there at the Force. They're always lending hands, whether it's leftover lunches, especially for us younger guys. It was always taking home sort of leftover lunches, helping us with dinner. Takes a bit of a toll off, falling to the dark side, or looking for takeaway options or anything like that. So nutrition's a big one
Was that a rush just to get the younger guys getting to the leftovers to go, I'm going to take some?
for sure. Whether that's so you don't have to cook, and then also you save a little bit of coin where you can is always awesome. So we definitely get looked after as the younger guys. And then I guess I was pretty fortunate. The guys I did live with and have lived with have all been on the same sort of path and same trajectory, I guess, in the sense of how they act on and off the field, whether it's in HQ in front of coaches or it's at home in our own, at our own house. It's the same thing. We're still trying to get to bed early. Fortunate to live in Perth, not far from the coast. We'd be down for sunset swims and stuff like that. And we found different ways to decompress and separate, I guess, the rugby in the morning and throughout the day, and then trying to get away from that in the evenings.
So how do you decompress? How do you get away from that pressure environment?
Yeah, for sure. Look, everyone's a little bit different. We're probably fortunate over here. We've got a big crew of guys that enjoy golf. Golf's probably a big one. There's a vast, spectrum of guys on how good we are, but it's something we enjoy, getting away from the course and talk some rubbish. And what else? Crikey's definitely through summer. Guys love getting down the beach, and whether it's just going out for a coffee and a wander, or getting down for a bit of a swim and trying to get some recovery in. Been very fortunate to try and use our bye weeks as much as possible. We got down to Esperance. The crew of us got down to Esperance early in the year. Again, just trying to separate, and a bit of balance in life I find's awesome, and it keeps the rugby side of things still exciting and still wanting to turn up every day.
And in terms of getting that balance and probably the reflection side of things when you're away from the actual on-field sport, are there any strategies that you use to reflect on, one, how you've trained for the day or how you've performed on the weekend in a game? And two, if you have used a strategy, how has that changed your mindset around your performance?
Yeah, I guess the stock standard review process. I guess a lot of guys, whether it's watching code or journaling. So Carlo Tizzano is a big example of someone who leads the front, I guess, in the way he prepares and the way he reviews and recovers. Not necessarily physically, but obviously physically, but he also sort of dives into the whole. He's journaling. He's how he feels, what went well, what didn't go well. He might have little focuses for games or trainings. He keeps it simple. I think a lot of the time it's simpler the better. Something that you can repeat, not something that's far fetched, and sometimes you can't repeat it, or you can't. Whether you're away in Fiji or in New Zealand or in Perth or on the East Coast, it's got to be something that you can repeat reasonably easy, and it keeps consistent.
Yeah. What have you found really triggers you in terms of making you either come to terms with a poor performance or taking the strength and the confidence out of a good performance? What have been the things that have allowed you to get the most out of those situations?
Yeah, for sure. I guess both sides of the spectrum. It's a good performance.
Do you celebrate it? Do you sort of give yourself a pat on the back, or do you sit back and downplay it?
Yeah, I mean, I guess quietly, I guess by yourself, you probably go, what, you're pretty happy with it, and it's always good to take positives away from a game, or especially when you're cutting clips is probably an example. But again, I'd say 95% of the guys in our environment are always trying to get better, so you probably focus a little bit more on what didn't go well, or what do you work on, or that's probably where a lot of the focus goes.
And so in terms of that, so you're thinking, could that possibly be, I don't want to use the word negative, but could that be a negative way of looking at where you go, you want to focus on those improvements and those work-ons as opposed to saying, well, here's my strength. This is what I perform well with. Can I go from being great to world class to world's best and create the strength. So where do you put the balance in terms of work-ons or strengths?
Yeah, for sure. I think a few of our coaches, and Cronny's probably the lead example on that. He always amplifies that what your strengths are. There's a reason they're your strengths. They're either your point of difference, or they're the reason you get picked, or they're the reason you're in this environment. So at the end of the day, you've got to continually work on those. But I guess it's trying to round out your skill set or your performance as a player. Trying to drag those things that maybe continue to work on, or slight weaknesses, dragging those up so they're closer to where your strengths are. And like you said, just trying to get a bit of a balance.
Is there I want to say coordinated approach within the group around the mental skill development? You obviously help each other out in, the nines might get together and you work on your box kicks or that sort of stuff. But is there also a coordinated approach to the mental side of things? You said you had guys that you tapped into like Whitey and, even Sitchy in prior to him retiring. Is that coordinated, or is that just something that each player has to go and find for themselves, the mental side of skill development?
Yeah, the mental side's probably tough, and it's probably a little bit of an untapped sort of resource, I guess, and it's probably definitely a little bit of unknown, definitely for myself, and I'd say probably more broadly across the group. Yeah, it's something you touch on. Last year we worked with a few different sort of mental coaches and around sort of building habits and, trying to unlock that 1% extra in our performance. And look, I definitely don't have all the answers, but I think it's something that is exciting, and you listen and hear enough sort of, I guess, from guys that have experienced it, some of those World Cup winners and guys that are the top of their game for 10 years, like they talk about how important it is and how much of a difference it's made in their careers. So it's definitely there. I think it's just trying to find the best way to unlock that sort of extra bit.
And you mentioned those guys, the mental skills coaches that you had come in. Did you find that you got benefit out of the work that you did with them?
Yeah, I think everyone would say, and to be fair, they'd be the first people to say, it's not going to be applicable to everyone. Not all of it's going to be applicable. You might pick out little bits and pieces. Some resonates with guys more than others, whether that's because of backgrounds or beliefs, or it's probably not the old one thing fits all. I think that probably sums up the mental strength and sort of space. But yeah, it's trying to find what works for you for sure.
Do you think that, exactly what you said there, you nailed it on the head, it's not for everybody and one piece doesn't fit all. Do you think that's what makes it so difficult to incorporate into a training program?
100%. We've got anywhere from 35 to 45 guys throughout the year, sitting in one room listening to someone talk. And look, it's hard. It's got to be hard. Some days you go, oh yeah, that works. I can see that happening. And then other days you sit there going, probably not for me. But again, I definitely think it's important, but it's just trying to find that balance of what works for everyone.
Who would you consider to be the toughest mentally within the playing group?
Toughest mentally? There's probably a few guys that you can rattle off the top of your head. Say guys like Carlo's a pretty good example. He's someone that, regardless of what's going on, he's as soon as he steps in those four walls, he's ready to go 100%.
What do you think it is about him that makes him like that?
Oh, there's probably lots of things that's going on with Carlo that makes him the way he is, and he'll be the first one to tell you that. But look, he's pretty hard-headed in the sense, he wants to be the best. He doesn't shy away from it. He doesn't hide from that whatsoever, and I think that's what makes him the player he is and the player that he'll continue to be. And then again, there's a list of guys that you can rattle off from an injury perspective that I've probably related to a fair bit. Guys like Harry Johnson-Holmes, he talked pretty openly about it this year. The battles he's had over the last sort of year or two here at the Force, and in regards to the injuries, and he's someone that I'd quizzed a lot. Bailey Kunzel was a big example that I'd use.
What about Bailey? What did you see in him that makes you think that?
He's just one of those guys that you could tell he'd be having a bad day, but it didn't stop anything in regards to, he was still the first one in the morning. He was still the last one to leave when it came to his rehab. He had his ups and downs throughout the rehab process, but he never whinged or whined about it. He just got on with it. And that just probably sums him up, and a few of those guys very similar.
And that resonates with you. You see those behaviours and you like the look of that?
Oh, 100%. I think it's inspiring, especially early on when I was sort of starting my rehab with my knee and seeing those guys just go, you know what, you just get on with it. And essentially, it's a part of life and it's a part of what you sign up for in any high performance environment. So, and again, perspective, you look on the other side of it and go, well, could be worse. I used to always just joke, it could be worse, lads. You could be pushing wheelbarrows around, or I could be stuck on the farm getting belted by the old man. So, like, I've got no complaints and loved every bit of it.
Yeah, and I'm sure the old man wouldn't mind you back there doing a bit of work for him.
Yeah.
But you talked about inspiration there from those guys with the rehab. Who else has inspired you to actually be the best version of yourself?
Oh, I guess it's probably hard to nail down into a small handful or a small group, and I feel like there's lots of people that have played, whether it's small or big, sort of roles in my journey to date, and hopefully going into the future. But
has there been a coach who you look back and you go, wow, like, and it might have been just one conversation you had with them, or it might have been a season you spent with them. Has there been a coach that has inspired you to go to professional lengths?
Yeah, I was probably, we sort of spoke about before we got started, but I went down to Barker, was that year 10, 11, 12. I got an opportunity to head down there into Sydney, and we were fortunate. We had Dino Hargraves. He was our head coach, our school coach there, and we had a pretty good age group, to be completely fair, and that was probably my first exposure to, we trained a couple of mornings a week, in the afternoons, couple of afternoons. So we did our review sessions, played on a Saturday, recovered on a Sunday, and that was probably my first, insight into, a small insight, but insight into sort of pro rugby and what it would look like and how much you sort of have to put in, I guess, to get there and stay there. So, Dino Hargraves, he was a man, and he used to, absolutely build us as kids, and we loved it, every little bit of it.
And was that, like, obviously being a country boy, you wouldn't shy away from hard work or from being belted. Not that you get belted in the country, but it's an environment where life can be a bit tough sometimes on the farm and working hard. Was that the ability to handle that? Was that inherent in you the whole time, or has your personality changed a little bit as you've grown? And have you noticed that you've gone from one sort of character trait to another, or have you just been consistent the whole way through?
Yeah, I guess you probably always you got to grow and change throughout life, and definitely in these kind of environments. But I feel like maybe those core pillars have probably always been there, I think, and then just trying to build on those. And I like to think I try and take little bits and pieces from everyone that I meet in life. Yeah, everyone's got something to offer. For sure, there's something that you can learn from anyone and everyone. So,
does that attitude come from mum and
dad? Yeah, I think so. I think my grandparents were probably good. My grandma, my auntie, she's always, when I went to boarding school, she was always, you're going to meet so many different people from all walks of life. She just sort of said, make sure you make the most of it. Take the moment to talk to the kids that, from a crazy background, or from overseas, or their mum and dad own this or work here, and just being inquisitive, I think, was always something they encouraged, and I tried to take that on.
Is it something that you obviously we spoke about curiosity before, but is that something that allows you to open up your mind to new ways of training or new ways of doing things?
Yeah, I definitely think so. I think there's always a better way to do something, regardless if it's training or working or on the farm. The old man shows multiple examples of that, and I think being open-minded is a trait that I keep trying to work on. I think it's such an unlocked thing that if you can just be a little bit more open-minded when you're talking to people or listening to things, whether it's a way to run a scrum strike or style of play in a rugby environment, or from a rehab point of view, we work with the physios and they're constantly trialing new and different ways to, especially around my knee, to get back quicker, to get back stronger, fitter, faster, whatever it may be, and different methods with that. It's been cool. It's been cool to try.
And when you're talking to them, is it a case of you driving that conversation, or was it the physio saying, "Look, I've done a bit of research on this. Do you want to try it?" Or were you the one doing the research, going, "Look at this. Can we try this?"
Oh, look, I definitely wasn't the one.
Yeah.
I was always all ears and excited to try it, but I was very much I had a lot of faith in our rehab sort of department, Madge and Cole and stuff there. I'd seen the work they'd done with guys like Bailey and Harry Johnson Holmes, and I said, well, look, you point direction and tell me where, and I'll do it, kind of thing. That was my attitude with it all. And we tried some new stuff, and some really worked. Some maybe didn't work as much with my knee, but again, it was just trying to find what worked for each player, and experiences were different in their own little way. credit to the physios, they were all over it.
And how were those conversations with the physio? Did you feel comfortable enough to go, mate, this is not working, we've got to do something different? Or were you a bit, a little bit hesitant to challenge them? Or
No, I wouldn't say hesitant. I think they sort of have an environment where it's very player-led in the sense that you've got to be as honest and open as possible. Otherwise, if you're trying to push through something just for the sake of it, then you're honestly not going to do yourself any favours. So the sooner I understood that and could wrap my head around that, then I just went, yeah, let's do it. It was good.
And so, all things being equal, and hopefully you can stay fit and healthy and you can get a few good years of rugby into you, how do you think you would see your attitude to professionalism in, say, 2 or 3 years' time? What do you think might be the things that might change?
Yeah, that's interesting. Interesting way to look at things. Off the top of my head, I don't know. Yeah. Hopefully, ideally, like sort of mentioned, ideally I'm still hanging around and have managed to put a couple of years good quality football together and stayed out on there. But I think you got to enjoy it. Like I think that's there's definitely periods where I went, oh, crikey, there's a million other things I'd rather be doing. But at the same time, the more you enjoy it and be happy with where you are and in regards to how you're playing and the environments you're in, then yeah, you just got to enjoy it and everyone takes care.
And what can you remember what those triggers were that made you think, oh, there's a million other things I'd rather be doing? You know what the triggers were? Were they injury or was it selection disappointment or?
Yeah, probably not so much selection, but yeah, definitely some of the niggles with injuries and just been like, oh, not again. And by the time I got to my knee, I was like, oh, fire out. Surely I'm running out of bad luck shortly. But again, you take a couple of days to decompress and sort of mourn and get over that stuff and find some energy to keep going. So.
Did you consciously give yourself like a couple of days? Did you say to yourself, look, wallow in my self-pity for a couple of days, but then I've got to snap out of it? Or did you just go through the motions and you found that it was just a couple of days?
Yeah, probably subconsciously gave myself a little bit and just was like, I don't know. Anyone that's been injured or had a few injuries, they'll be the first to tell you, like, there's nothing worse than having people go, oh, mate, like, so sorry to hear. And you get that it's coming from a great place, and it always is, but it's just that constant reminder sometimes, especially when you're, I guess, moved on from the morning, you're going, righto, what's next kind of thing. You're trying to get motivated to move on from it all and just get into what's next.
What would have you wanted to have heard? You sort of don't really feel like hearing that. What is it that they could say that would have a better impact on you?
Yeah, it's interesting. I had this conversation with Bailey once, and I don't know. I really don't know what you'd rather hear. I don't know if it's the natural, I guess, course of the sort of step, I guess, in it. You've got to get through that whole stage of, oh, I'm sorry, mate, how's it going, blah, blah, but.
Do you think it could be the frustration a little bit that they're healthy and they're going okay and you're not?
Yeah, maybe subconsciously. Again, I'm never too bothered about, well, not necessarily too bothered, but don't compare yourself too much with guys that are fit and healthy, but it all comes from a good place.
It's a challenge, I think, and especially given my time at the Force and seeing some of the players that went through rehab there in similar situations where they probably got to the point where, oh no, not again. Yeah. But they were able to just kept trudging through. So, is that something, the ability to just keep turning up, was that something that you had to consciously tell yourself sometimes, or did you find that you were quite intrinsically driven to get through the rehab?
Yeah, probably a little bit more intrinsically. I think just naturally I was just like, right, the more I can turn up and the 1% better I can get each day, whether it's getting my knee better or it was work on some seated passing or I spent a bit of time with John O'Lance and stuff, working on my left foot, just trying to work on other areas of the game. I think that was a big one. I can't remember who told me it, but early on in my rehab it was like, look, mate, this is an awesome opportunity to work on other things, whether it's study, whether it's your rugby IQ. Shout out to Brad Harris, he's our defence coach. Like I worked a lot with him this year, cutting clips, trying to do some preview for the Nines each week on who we're coming up against, and just trying to add. That was my biggest thing. I just didn't want to be lost in the background and pushed to the side. I wanted to be like, look, I'm still here. I still want to add value, and trying to find where you can do that and work that out can be tricky. But I was fortunate we had a good crew there that would guide me enough and put me in sort of a direction to go, right, here's what we need from you. Go and do it. And it was awesome. It was good.
Do you think there's an element of it as well that, every player is vying for a contract and vying for an existence in a squad, that you actually do want to portray yourself as, I want to say bigger than just you, that you're actually able to stretch out to a wider part of the squad, that, you're providing the clips for the nines, and you're actually showing the coaches and those guys who make decisions that you bring a more value than just someone who passes and kicks box kicks.
Yeah, for sure. I think that was something that, naively, I wasn't too naive about it, but like understanding, a couple of long-term injuries and getting sort of towards the back end of my contract, that you don't want to be pushed aside, you don't want to be forgotten about, and trying to find ways to avoid that. And no doubt whatsoever that you're obviously trying to compete against these guys day in, day out, but at the same time too, you want to add value where you can. We talk a lot about it. So in the opposing team at training, for the guys that aren't necessarily in the 23 each week, how we can add value and how we can still contribute to the team's success, through preparing pictures, trying to run shape that the opposition are going to bring on the weekend, trying to bring those maps and those plays and best prep our boys, because at the end of the day, we want to succeed individually, but then again as a group, we want our team to succeed. We want to see the force do well, and everyone buys into it, so it's good.
Yeah, no, buy-in's good. Mate, I appreciate we've run out of time there, and I really enjoyed the chat. But just the final question I want to ask, and it's one of those ones where it's, crystal ball sort of stuff, but, when you get towards the end of your career, what would be the one thing from a mental point of view that you would really want to see a change in? What would you want to see you being able to handle with mentally at the end of your career that you possibly may not do right now?
Yeah, Corey, that's an interesting one.
Tough question.
Tough on the spot. But I guess it's probably been able to ask for a bit more help. From coaches and other players and mates. There's always someone struggling, and being able to, I guess, balance probably is a big one too. I don't know how much of that's a mental thing, but balance, I think, is everything. I've seen a few of the guys, how they balance their family on and off the field, and you see they turn up and they're the best player in the room, and you're like, fire out, mate, how are you doing all that kind of thing? So at times I feel like I'm struggling. I've got nothing going on compared to a couple of kids and wives and houses, and so balance is a pretty big one.
Well, just from discussions I've had, balance and that ability to ask for help, they're two outstanding mental traits that I think if you master those, you'll be doing really well. So, Doug, really appreciate your time, mate. It's been great chatting to you, and all the best with the trip over New Zealand for the NPC.
Yeah, no, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thanks for joining Doug Phillipson and myself, Dwayne Nestor, on the Sporting Mindset Show. I hope today's conversation has given you something to think about. One thing we know for sure is that mindset matters. So as you move through your week, maybe take a moment to reflect. What mindset are you bringing into your sport, your coaching, your parenting, or your everyday life? If you enjoyed this episode, follow or subscribe, share it with someone who'd benefit from it, and continue being part of a community that values growth, learning, and high performance done the right way. I'm Dwayne Nestor, and this has been the Sporting Mindset Show.